This is Liz.
This is Jade.
And this is Carly. And you're listening to
Babes and Babies.
Which just made my baby cry.
Oh, man. She woke up from a nap.
She did not like our intro. Even
goodness.
Emerson thinks it sucks.
Hey, girls. That's okay. The rest will be good. That's all that matters.
Yes, today's going to be awesome. We have a special guest, Anna, here with us, who works with postpartum clients as a postpartum doula, and she's going to be talking a lot with us about the fourth trimester and all of that. And she was trying really hard not to laugh at us doing the intro.
That's okay, you guys. We're doing beautifully.
Well, we're excited to have her on. I'm very curious. I don't know a lot about this fourth trimester. I didn't even know it existed until you guys started talking about it. And until our Facebook group started talking about it.
Yeah, which I think is going to be really insightful and helpful for you, because for me it was, because I had no idea what the fourth trimester was either. I thought, well, what is this weird name? Because fourth trimester obviously doesn't equal math. You know,
right.
I was like, what does this mean? But
has someone made this up and it's just become a thing?
Yeah, I was like, yeah. But once I started researching and looking more into it, especially because I had Emerson 4 weeks early, I was really just wanting to create like this womb environment for her, because she came out early and she still needed that 4 extra weeks of technically being in my womb, you know? And so it's just like a really, I think, cool thing that it's being more acknowledged now, and it just gave me a little bit more patience with myself and patience with learning how to be a mom and understanding my baby. So I think you'll actually get a lot out of this today, Carly.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to learn all of the things.
Yeah.
Teach me, oh wise one.
So the fourth trimester, it's kind of twofold. It's not just a point where I love the fact, Jade, that you were talking about that you were looking to create a more womb-like environment, because actually that's, from the baby's perspective, what the fourth trimester is all about. There's kind of this theory that babies are born almost 12 weeks earlier than they should be, because they're so independent, or they're so dependent on us as parents. And so they're just not, like, their nervous systems aren't completely regulated yet. They're so dependent on feeding. They're not very alert. Their sleep's all over the place. So certainly they need a lot more help settling and kind of getting into a groove. And then on the flip side of that is the sort of culture shock that you experience as a new parent coming into this, whether through birth or adoption, and just getting used to, what in the world does this look like? My world looked like when we come home, it looks the same, but everything in terms of our expectations of ourselves and our needs of our babies, all of that is all different. So just adjusting to our new normal and figuring out how to best advocate for ourselves too and our needs, and when a lot of times we don't even really know what our needs are too. So
I know that, like, with Jade, because she went into labor so early, I remember she was like, I'm so not even prepared at home at all. And I was like overly prepared. Like, I had 2 of everything, you know, I mean, everything was packed. And I think it's the same for Jade and I. You know, we come home and we're still both like, what? They gave us this baby at the hospital to take home, and they trust us, and we have to keep it alive no matter how many things of wipes and diapers you have. It doesn't help you. You're still like, what do I do?
Yeah. There was this, there's a great book that I actually read. So I have a son who is nearly 13, and then I have a daughter who is almost 7. And I remember, because obviously being a new mom looked a lot different almost 13 years ago.
Sure.
I remember coming home, because I actually was the first of any of my friends to have a baby. And so coming home and just thinking, and as a background, I have over 12 years experience as a labor and delivery nurse before I went into my doula work. And so I thought, okay, I do this all the time. I deal with newborns all the time. I should totally have a handle on this. This is going to be great. I know exactly how I want to breastfeed. I know all about pumping. I've got a really great background. And once we got home, I had the same exact feelings that you did, where you just want everything in the world for this little person, and you feel the weight of that on you, in addition to the fact that your breasts are leaking, and you're leaking from, places that you're not used to leaking all the time.
Yes.
And you're extremely hormonal, and you just don't quite know what to do with this tiny person. Honestly, every single person I've ever talked to who has experienced birth or brought a baby home, all of them are just a hot mess when they get home. It is not a Hallmark card, I think, and that's kind of what society has set it up to be. That's how it was, I think, in terms of my expectations when I brought my son home, because I didn't have any other reference point than these really cute, outfits and I think back then, a baby story was going on. So I thought, oh yeah, they look like they're adjusting great. And now, holy cow, with a lot of my clients with social media, especially Instagram, it's a lot of pressure, because they're seeing only so much of the story, because we're really, a lot of us are really careful as to what we post or share.
I get
for
that.
lots of different reasons.
I feel like I've had a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, oh my God, your baby is so happy all the time, because obviously as parents, we're going to post the cute stuff on Instagram, and I'm like, no, trust me, she's just as fussy as any other baby, And so I feel like that is kind of a hard thing, as you feel that pressure as a mother, because I've had mothers reach out to me and be like, please tell me she cries because my baby is fussy. And I'm like, no, trust me. I know you're seeing these happy moments, but she's just as normal as any other baby.
Right.
But.
And then so I think it's very easy for us to forget about all of the cropping that happens in those posts. That we crop out a lot of just the things that are obnoxious, or the things that we feel really insecure about or we worry about. And so I think that when that's only your viewpoint when you're pregnant, it's we kind of do ourselves an accidental disservice to realize just how intense those first 12 weeks are afterwards. So, but there's definitely ways to cope with them. And one of the best things to do is to think about the postpartum period, actually even before you give birth, to be able to set yourself up, to be able to help yourself, and also have more realistic expectations. So I know that no one is ready for the inconsistency of baby sleeping and eating. There's lots of different body issues. A lot of us, when we come home, we don't realize that we still look like we're 4 months or 5 months pregnant. And then there's oftentimes a lot of just postpartum pain, whether that's if you've had a vaginal delivery where you're your bottom just does not feel the same, or it's really sore and it can go on for quite a while, even when it's normal pain. And then a lot of us are recovering from surgery too, from C-sections. So that alone can be really complicating. And there's just all the hormonal changes too that happen, because you're the most hormonal when you are ready to give birth. And then as soon as your placenta detaches, that's
drops.
when you're, yes. So, and it's really interesting too, because serotonin, your happy hormone, is linked almost in a sidecar. If you kind of think of it from the vantage point of a roller coaster, it's like sitting in a sidecar with estrogen and a lot of the other hormones that you have. And as soon as that starts to plummet, naturally your happy hormone also starts to plummet.
Lovely.
And it's you have no choice. It's just what happens. And so we go into it not realizing that that's exactly what happens, and that that's normal. And so a lot of us, I think, think that it's our fault that we're feeling that way or that we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So
I feel
getting
like
on a roller coaster ride and getting to the top of me, like, just kidding, take me off. And you have no choice but to ride it.
Yeah.
as you guys know, I'm trying to get in better shape after having Emmy, and I wanted to tell you about something that I started using to get stronger and more fit. Beachbody On Demand. It's an online fitness streaming service that gives you unlimited access to a huge variety of highly effective world-class workouts. I've been working on my core strength and toning up, so I've been really enjoying the ability to find specific videos that concentrate on certain areas of my body. They have intense workouts like P-Yo, P90X, and Insanity. But they also have lower impact stuff like yoga and 21 Day Fix.
Yes, you can customize your workouts, and they have a short 10-minute workout too. Lots of them. I can play the videos on my iPad or my phone, and I don't have to leave my house to go to the gym. I can do it from wherever I am. It's great. You definitely need to give this service a try. Right now, our listeners can get a free trial membership when you text BABES, all one word, no spaces, to 303030. You'll get full access to this entire platform for free. All the workouts and nutrition information for free. Just text BABES to 303030. Okay, let's get back to the show.
I feel like and as moms, like, because we want to be such perfect mothers for our babies at that time too, we don't give ourselves permission to feel that hormonal change, because then we feel like we're being bad moms. We're like, why do I feel overwhelmed, or why do I feel sad when I should be feeling happy? And I remember there was times where, like, I was in the middle of the night, like, nursing, and I'd be just crying. It was just like this release of, like, emotions just from the hormone change. It was crazy. But I feel like that's something we need to realize is just normal, and it's okay to have that.
Yes.
Carly, how do you feel like you're, I guess, adjusting so far?
I think it varies. I mean, there's times, like Evan the other day said, because I was really tired one day, and he was like, you know, sometimes I look at you and I'm like, oh no, is she going to go to the dark side? I'm like, and I said, you know, sometimes I feel myself like on the verge of maybe possibly going a little to the dark side. But then I take those thoughts and I go, okay, those are just thoughts and those are just emotions, and I'm going to put them over here because they're not going to do me any service right now. And so I feel like almost like I have to take my emotions and thoughts outside my body for a little bit because I need to focus on my baby. And if I allow myself to be overwhelmed with my feelings, then I won't be able to give her what she needs. So that's kind of what I've been doing lately. I'm like, okay, that's just a thought. I'm going to place it over here for a while, and I'm just going to keep feeding, or I'm going to, you know, it's 3:00 in the morning and we're waking up every hour, but that's okay because this will only last a short amount of time and it's going to be okay. And, you know, like, that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Carly, that is incredible. That sense of perspective is, I'm in awe. That's really, really helpful.
I'm not saying it happens all the time, but that's what I tell myself.
No, but it's awesome that you're able to do that, because I don't know. I feel like, especially for a first-time mom, you know, and going through all of that, that's like a great perspective to have. Just to realize that it's a thought and it's not like a permanent.
It's not who you are.
Right. It's not who you are.
Yeah. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, there's some things that have overwhelmed me. Like, I mean, she's a super fussy baby and she hasn't been sleeping well. And some days she sleeps all day, so then she doesn't sleep at night. And then the next day she'll sleep, you know, at night, but she won't sleep during the day. And it's just been like really hard. And so Evan ended up asking me if we wanted a night nurse. And I started feeling like, okay, that makes me a bad mom for even thinking that's a good thing. But then he asked her to come over and meet us, and my dog like loved her, and he doesn't love anyone right now. And she had the best energy. And I was like, you know what? This is probably a godsend right now. And I just need to think of her as a teacher, and she can teach my baby how to sleep, and she can teach me how to do things during the day, and she can teach me how to make my baby sleep. And instead of thinking like, oh, I'm not doing a good job being a mom at night, or I'm not doing a good job being a mom during the day, I'm like, okay, she's just my teacher for right now, and we don't need her forever. I just need to learn how to do baby, and then we'll be okay.
Yeah.
So there are things that have really overwhelmed me because for a while I was like, you want to hire someone that makes me a terrible mom, but I'm not. It's just all new and it's hard. And it's the fourth trimester is overwhelming.
It is. And we're not meant to do it alone. Like, that's not really how, I mean, especially the way our families are formed. So many of us live apart from our families, or we might have moved to a new city for our partner's job, and we don't have a whole solid friend base that, you know, are really helpful. And so we're going into this, something that you've never done before, all by yourself. And so absolutely, I'm really, really proud of you that you were able to own those feelings and realize that you weren't meant to do it alone. It has nothing to do with the kind of parent that you are. Absolutely. If anything, I feel like it's speaking to what a strong parent you are, because you realize that you need help. And that can come in the form of a night nurse, that can come in the form of a postpartum doula, that can come in the form of having your mom come, or your best friend come, or your sister, someone that can really just be by your side and help nurture you and the baby, so that you can rest and heal and feed baby, and then get your bearings, and then also have someone that can keep up with like the household chores and, you know, make sure that you're eating and drinking, and that you're healing well too. I mean, so it's really important.
We wanted to take a quick break from talking about the fourth trimester to talk about our other favorite topic, which is, of course, wine. We just received our shipments from one of our new partners, Bright Cellars, the personalized wine subscription company. This company is awesome because their whole business is based off of a super fun quiz they created to help you find your perfect wine matches. I took their quiz and just received my first box with my personal wine matches, and I got a Blue Towers Malbec, White Willow Chardonnay, Indaloo Cabernet Sauvignon, and a Circa 33 Rosé. I'm super excited to try the Cab because that's my favorite, so I already know that they nailed my tastes. What did you get in your box, Carly?
I got a Mojave Rain Red Blend, Obscura Petite Syrah, 40 Winks White Blend, and a Sauvignon Blanc. I've never had the Petite Syrah before, but I cannot wait to try it. The other thing about Bright Cellars is that if you don't like any of the matches, your wine concierge will include a free replacement bottle in your next shipment. Go to brightcellars.com/babes to take the wine quiz and see your matches. Babes and Babies listeners also get 50% off your first order, so you guys really need to check it out. That's bright like the light bulb, cellars like winecellar.com/babes for 50% off your wine matches. brightcellars.com/babes.
So Jade, on the, like, for you though, you kind of, I mean, when you moved to Kansas, you didn't have a lot of people there. So how did you feel, I guess, doing that kind of on your own?
Yeah, no, actually when Carly and we were texting the other day about her getting a night nurse, and I was like, girl, if that's what you need, do it, because it really does take a village to raise a baby. Like, I know that's the same, but I never realized that until I had Emerson. I was like, oh my gosh, it would be so much easier with a lot more support. But my parents live in Nebraska. None of my friends really live here. Nobody of Tanner's friends have babies, so there's no one I could relate to here. His mother-in-law, or my mother-in-law, lives here, and she's been a help on the weekends. But Tanner went back to work 7 days after Emerson was born, and it was just way too soon for me. I wish I would have been able to have him at least another week. And it was kind of rough, but I mean, I just slept when the baby slept, and we just did I did a lot of baby wearing and baby holding, and I was always worried, oh my gosh, I'm spoiling my baby too much. But it kind of just what got us, I think, me and her through it together until, you know, she was able to like hold her head up and be a little bit more supportive on her own, and then it got easier. But there were some they say the days are long and the years are short, or however it goes, but there were some long days. But yeah, I kind of had to rely on myself through a lot of it, I feel.
But I also think that you own that so well.
Thank
as
you.
well. Like I think that just came to you as easy? Because like you said, once you had her, you couldn't even picture life before her. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean your motherly love and your motherly instincts are what get you through, because there's nothing that I'm going to get emotional, but there's nothing I wouldn't do for her.
Oh, Jade, I love you. She's your best friend, Jade.
She
totally.
really is. That's so cute. Oh my gosh. Oh, I can't wait to say that. Right now, I'm just the boob.
But no, what I was going to say too is what I think is crazy is this 4th trimester is supposed to last, like we say, like in the newborn stage, that first 12 weeks that you have your child. And then so many moms who go to work, they only get like 8 weeks maternity leave in it. And I just can't imagine that transition either, where you're still changing so much and your baby is changing and trying to adjust to the world, and you have to go back to work, and how that feels. Because that to me seems like even harder.
Right.
And it is such a transition because you use such a different part of your brain to like that nurturing intrinsic part of your brain where you can it's almost like you can sniff and realize,
I've never felt so much like an animal.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so instinctual.
And then to go back to work and be expected to be analytical or have any sort of perspective, to be able to be computative, like be able to, there's so many different jobs that you use a completely different part of your brain than you do when you parent. And so having to flip to that can be really challenging.
Gosh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And just being separated like from your child. I can't like, I mean, I went to get my hair cut, and I, for that 2-hour window, I was getting my hair dyed and cut. I was like, oh my gosh, is she okay? And Evan's like, you don't have to worry about her. And I'm like, but I'm worried. Can you send me a photo? Like, what is she doing right now?
Going to.
Yeah. It's such a funny feeling.
So I wanted to touch on, Jade, too. You were talking about how just absolutely head over heels you are for Emerson. And while that is also a really normal part of a parenting story, a lot of listeners also might be listening to you and think, oh my gosh, I didn't feel that way about my baby, or it took a really long time to feel that connection with my baby. Does that mean that there's something wrong with me? And absolutely not. Attachment happens at all different points. There's plenty of birthing people who've had babies and, they have the glorious like skin to skin chest moment. And I've known a lot of people who have looked at their babies and think, oh my gosh, who is this person? Rather than the outpouring of tears and having it be really connective. And that can be scary when we're expecting to be connected right at the bat. So it's an important thing to normalize that being connected with your baby can be a progression. And sometimes it can take a couple weeks, especially if we've had a birth where it's been kind of traumatic. A lot of us actually are walking away with birth stories that maybe on the outside seem like everything went well and healthy, but to that birthing person, they feel that they were really scared, or they feared for their life, or they felt their privacy invaded in a way that was really hard for them. And so that can also kind of contribute to their connection with their baby too, and just to like motherhood or parenthood in general. And so a lot of people struggle with that, and it's just not talked about, which can really impact then. It can set off a harder point in that whole fourth trimester, because I think there's a lot of guilt over not feeling instantly connected, or just feeling perhaps some shame or guilt over how your birth story went. Like if you had a goal of having a vaginal delivery and then you wind up with a C-section, it's so hard not to really kind of like make that about us rather than this was just a situation that was out of our control. And this is just how your baby was born. And it can take a long time to come to peace with that.
I had one of our women in our Facebook group write something that she said that she had a traumatic birth and the baby was healthy and stuff, but because she was so afraid to lose her baby, she kind of put space between them because she loved the baby so much that if she didn't put the space between them, then if she lost her child, she would have been completely, obviously devastated. So she almost protected herself from the grief, I guess.
Sure.
And then she had to learn how to cope with that in her 4th trimester.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight.
Oh. Yeah, no kidding.
And I think that it's nice for women to realize, though, that is weight, and to know that is a lot, and to know that you are going through that instead of, I have to feel this way, and, just the expectation of it. So knowing that is a weight that I'm carrying, but weights can be lifted and will be lifted with time, and
that they're external. It's
right.
It's not you. It's not anything that you're doing. It's not who you are. My doula partner, Eleanor, who I adore, she said that one of the best pieces of advice her mom gave her, and it's not even so much advice as just a reminder, and we definitely carry it through with our clients, is just reminding parents that you are the absolute best parent for your baby. Hands down, you are enough from beginning to end. There's nothing different or special that you need to be. You come equipped. You just, I think a lot of the 4th trimester and that whole first year of parenting, because the learning curve is so steep, it's just kind of like uncovering that and discovering your strengths, things that you didn't know about yourself, ways you're able to cope. There's even things like, I know for me, I had thought that I was going to love breastfeeding, and I wound up not really being that wild about it. I did it because I felt it was important for my son, and he was we were fortunate to have a really healthy nursing relationship, but emotionally, I remember feeling trapped all the time. Every time I sat down to nurse, like, it was really, really hard for me. And I was really uncomfortable with those feelings because I thought, I'm nourishing my baby and I should be happy about this. And I didn't. And so there's lots of things that we discover about ourselves in this experience that can be hard to sit with too. But none of it defines who we are as people. And just like, Carly, it's so great that you're able to look at it as it's a thought or this is a situation, that it is external to ourselves. It's really, really important, because I know I was reading through the Facebook group questions and things, and oh my gosh, there are so many mothers on there that are, I know, doing such a kick-ass job with their kids, because even just all of the worries that they have, the fact that they're worrying alone is saying that they're tuned into their baby and they want the best for their baby. So
yeah.
The closest thing to the fountain of youth is a good night's sleep. That's why you guys really need to get the bed that mattresses dream about. Nectar. Nectar mattresses are 11 inches deep, so yes, bigger is better, and utilize a 5-layer system of comfort technology that no mattress on the market has. If you want to wake up pain-free, well-rested, refreshed, and at your best, then you need to try Nectar for cloud-like comfort.
The team at Nectar truly believes in love at first nights, which is why they offer 365 nights to discover that happily ever after does exist. If you aren't 100% happy and riding into the sunset, they will pick up the mattress for free and give you a full refund. You have nothing to lose, guys. Nectar promises a forever warranty on your mattress. Buy now and get $125 off and 2 free premium pillows with any mattress order and free delivery. That's nectarsleep.com/babes and get the best sleep you've ever had for every night of the rest of your life and then some. I have a question for you, Anna. So as a postpartum doula, what would be if somebody was looking for your services during the 4th trimester, what would be things that you would help them with?
So the role of a postpartum doula is multifaceted. So the first thing is that we're not meant to take the place of family. We just work cohesively with family. So what we can do is really nurture the parent. If you were to go from this thought point of like mothering the mother, if you're looking at it in that like gendered way, what we do is we are able to, we understand what birth recovery looks like. So we're able to know like how long you bleed, like should you still be feeling contractions? Like how long should you kind of hang out at home until you're ready to go out? And
what are the answers to all of those?
So usually, so in terms of, if you, so the postpartum bleeding afterwards is called lochia. You probably remember your labor and delivery nurse telling you about that afterwards. Yes. And so for the first like week is when it's at its heaviest. And then it starts to taper off after the second or third week. And then usually you can get some kind of interesting discharge all the way up until like 6 weeks after. Women who have had C-sections tend to not have as much lochia just because a lot of the sloughing off and the blood that needs to drain from a vaginal birth that's happened like during the C-section. And so so that's usually about 2 weeks when it seems to be its most apparent. And then it just kind of goes down to spotting. And then for every baby that you have, in terms of like the contractions that you have after you birth, you notice them the strongest usually the first few days after you have a baby. So especially if you're breastfeeding, that tends to be...
Yeah, what is that about?
So actually, it's really cool.
That is the most nuts thing ever. Every time I breastfeed in the hospital, I'd be like, pain pill, please.
I love them. I was like obsessed. I liked them because it made me like, because it made me,
Jade,
I'm
you're
obsessed
nuts.
with like, I know, but I like to know how the body works, and it's fascinating to me, and just the science and everything of like anatomy. And so it was just fascinating to me to know every time I was breastfeeding that somehow my body knew how to heal itself because it's the shrinking of your uterus, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
It's so cool.
That's exactly what.
It hurts.
Well, and so I will tell you for each, like if you're thinking about possibly having more than one baby, it tends to be more uncomfortable the second time number of kids you have.
Oh man,
because your uterus expands, as you, and so it because it's expanded one time now, then it expands a second or a third, and then so it just has to work a little bit harder each time to kind of return to its normal size.
Yeah, because Carly, when you have your second baby too, supposedly because your uterus has muscle memory, you show faster too because your uterus just knows.
Exactly.
The first time it doesn't know what it's doing; it's just kind of going as it goes, and then the second time it's like, oh, I remember what happened with this thing.
You will get fat fast.
Yeah, so
you're welcome.
It just starts making room for your baby even faster. So
that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
I know, Jade, that you had asked you had mentioned on the Facebook group how you've dealt with some postpartum anxiety. Then so many women commented back and they could relate to that. So did you have any questions, I guess, surrounding that, or what does that look like for you?
Well, I've had anxiety in my life, so I'm just generally an anxious person. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, I took medication for it because I would have panic attacks. So I guess it may be just be generalized anxiety now that I have a baby, but it's just constantly worrying about your child. I feel like it affects my social life. I feel like it affects my life with my husband, because I don't want to leave her. I don't want to, and stuff like that. And then I'm always worried like something bad's going to happen to her. So it's almost like paranoia in a way. Like Carly, we were talking last episode about how like we envision bad things, these images of bad things happening to our child.
Yeah.
And so it's stuff like that. But it's mostly like social. It's like I don't want to go and be a normal human anymore because I don't know how to without these worries. And that's kind of how it manifests for me. But I know a lot of women said sometimes it manifests as rage because maybe they don't know how to process it, and which is interesting to me too. I never thought of it that way. So, but there was tons and tons of comments. It just seems like it's so different for each woman, but it seems like a very common feeling. And so that's why I was wondering if it has to do more with the fourth trimester. Although I feel like now I'm 6 months postpartum, I feel it more. I feel more anxiety now, maybe because I'm putting pressure on myself to be normal, you know, because now my baby's needing me less, but I still have the anxiety is still there. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So I know one of the big questions was exactly that, trying to figure out what is normal and what could possibly be postpartum anxiety. And I know that you're going to have a therapist touch on postpartum depression in another episode. But one thing to know is that, so postpartum depression is kind of like an umbrella term. It relates to like kind of like an agitated depression in birthing people after they have their baby. And so when depression is kind of like the dominating symptom, that's when it really links with postpartum depression. And you can still be anxious too. There's still plenty of a lot of times it can be both. And then
I would say, so I have a question for you then, because my anxiety, like I know a lot of people have anxiety. They feel like they need to do things and they're constantly doing things, but mine manifests as in it's so overwhelming, I avoid. So mine's avoidance. So some days I feel like all I want to do is lay on the couch with my baby because I just want to avoid all the things because it gives me anxiety. But instead that persists the anxiety. Would that be associated with depression, or is that just the way my
could be. It
anxiety
could be. I'm sorry.
Because it's just avoidance. And so some days that avoidance, just all I want to do is just do nothing because everything's so overwhelming.
Sure.
But I don't know if that's depression, because it's not sad. It's just overload stimulation. So I'm numbing it.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, and so that's where I think, I know I experienced postpartum depression with my oldest, and I had not only feelings of feeling incapable of being able to be a good mom and all that goes with it, but I also had a lot of those intrusive thoughts and anxieties over leaving my baby with my husband, or a lot of times I would have difficulty sleeping. So when it's kind of like both of them together, a lot of practitioners do qualify that as postpartum depression. When you're having more of an issue with solely anxiety, like with panic attacks, or if kind of like your symptoms kind of look more like OCD, or if you're having symptoms that kind of correlate with like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that kind of tends to be more related to anxiety. And the nice thing is that you don't have to diagnose it yourself. If it's, and a big thing too, which was kind of like a light bulb moment for me, it took me until I was 6 months postpartum to actually seek out help, because I didn't realize that what I was experiencing wasn't normal. I kept trying to explain it away. And I think a lot of the guests on your Facebook page also have been kind of wrestling with figuring out, is this normal or not? And once I realized that it wasn't, like one of the greatest things that my OB had said was, you don't have to feel this way. Like, you don't have to suffer. There's ways to be able to help yourself so that you can feel lighter and capable and more like yourself. And so when you start, my big takeaway is, if it's really infringing with your quality of life and it's going past like the first like month of postpartum stage, it's very possible that it could be something that a practitioner would be really helpful with. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go straight onto medication.
Yeah.
I took medication. It was really helpful for me, and I only took it for 6 months. And then I was able to go off of it and be fine. But there's also lots of non-medication, non-pharmacological methods that can be really helpful as well.
I feel like that's also where, though, you do need a tribe to raise a baby comes handy, because I think realizing that you're not alone, is a huge thing, and realizing other people are feeling the same way, and that all of this is new. So it's probably natural to have scary thoughts, and it's natural to, be like, I don't know how to do life without you now because you're in my life, and I can't do it how I did before because I had to, you know what I mean? Like so much adjustment. So I think just that tribe of knowing, hey, we're not alone. I've been there. I know what this feels like, and then also being able to say, hey, it's okay if you need help, that it's something that's not really talked about. And there's so much mom guilt that comes with that, and being like, if you need to go get help, that's okay. I've been there. I've done that. Or this is what worked for me. And, I'm not ashamed that I, did this to be a better mom for my child.
I think that that's where my anxiety stems from, is that the lack of support, maybe of support system that I've had, because I don't feel like I'm a bad mom. I actually think I'm a really amazing mom. And that's not like where my anxiety comes from. It's more that I don't know how to juggle everything else. So, and like, I don't know how to juggle just the rest of my life and different facets. And so instead of choosing those, I only choose to be a mom, and then the anxiety over I can't do everything else is what consumes me. Because I'm not keeping my house clean enough, and I'm not calling my mother enough, and I'm not, going on dates enough with my husband, and I have zero social life. I don't see any of my friends. I actually made a friend at the mall at the pretzel stand the other day, and we talked about babies, because she had a 9-month-old, and I was like, oh my God, this feels so good. But I randomly ran into her. So it's just like things like that. The rest of my life, all the other aspects are what give me anxiety, because I don't know how to juggle them. And since I can't juggle them, I choose my baby.
Right.
So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
that
absolutely
makes total
does.
sense.
Yeah, social isolation can be a big component. One of the things that we were able to do in the town that we live in that had been really helpful for me when I was struggling with my son was we started actually a new parent support group. And we have kind of like a drop-in policy, and it's once a week. And we meet every Tuesday morning from 10 to 11:30. And you just show up. You can bring your baby or not, whatever feels good. And then we're able to kind of all just kind of plop down and talk, and people can voice their challenges. They can voice their joys or things that they were able to triumph with. And there's just so much power in being able to hear someone else say, me too. And so that was a big help for me, in addition to also seeing my practitioner, was being able to relate to other new moms who were going through the same things that I am, or I was. So I don't know necessarily if there are any sort of new parent support groups near you, Jade, because I know ours goes from newborn to basically when babies are crawling, just because it is a wide range, but it's great to be able to see there's a lot of peer support. So a lot of the parents that have that are a little bit further down the road are such great support for the newer parents who are saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And then, it gives you this sense of perspective of, wow, I'm sure you're doing it right now with Carly. Like you remember what it's like to have this 3-week-old who is so dependent on you.
Right.
And everything's so erratic and the new normal is so profound. I don't know if anything is available. It's a great thing to look for. It's a great resource to dig into.
I know there definitely is. And I know there's another group of moms that I've been looking to get into, which is like called Fit for Moms, where everybody just gets their babies in their strollers and they exercise, which is something I feel right. And so I feel like I saw on our thread too in the Facebook group that a lot of women said they cope with their anxiety with exercise, which is something that I'm not doing and that I just committed to start doing. Because I don't have a way to manage my stress. And I feel like that would be a great stress reliever. And then also meet some other moms. But it's the social anxiety that's the hardest for me. So I'm like, how do I make friends as an adult now? And, and like,
how do maybe if you do it once, it's like jumping into the deep end. And then you're like, okay, I can swim here.
I just don't know how to. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like maybe a group of moms would be good because pretty much all you probably do is talk about your kids, because that's the only thing that really runs in my head right now. So even like with Tanner's single friends, like we're around, like even when we saw Ashley Iaconetti we saw her a couple weeks ago, we were at her house and everybody's watching a show and talking about it and we're talking, and all I'm doing is taking care of my child,
right.
because she needs me, and it just consumes my head. And then I feel like I'm being a bad friend because all I'm doing is taking care of my child.
Well, the one thing I think you'll think that, and then later when Ashley has a baby, she'll be like, Jade, I so get it. So like we're all, most of us are going to have kids, and now I totally get that, which I wouldn't have gotten before, but you're not being at all a bad friend. You're being a great mom. And one day Ashley's going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm being a bad friend. And you're going to be like, no, you're being a great mom.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know. It's just weird, like how the anxiety almost like perpetuates. Like it's like the cycle. You doing something, not doing something because it makes you anxious, but then because you're not doing something, then the anxiety gets even worse.
Oof. Yeah.
And I think it's really easy for us to say, to kind of like check your expectations as to what we're responsible for and capable of. But if you have the ability to outsource too, whether it's having, a friend come over and just clean our bathroom for us, or whether it's or whether it's hiring a postpartum doula, or hiring like a housekeeper, or having our mom come stay with us for a month, there's lots of different things that we can do to really take care of the things that really technically aren't our priority right now, because it's totally okay to prioritize yourself and your baby at the moment.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm super hard on myself. Like I expect myself to be super mom, super woman. And so when I don't meet my own expectations, then that's where kind of like the like almost like self-verbal abuse happens. And then that makes me feel bad about myself. But and I said not like as a mother, but just as like not being able to tackle everything.
Right.
See, and I feel like I haven't had kids, so I don't know. But when I think about it, and whenever like I talk about it, I feel like I set really low expectations for myself, even though I feel like it'll come very natural to me. And I know, like, I think it's because I know, like, instinctually I'll be able to take care of my baby and take care of myself. But I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to take a shower every couple days. I might not. I might shower once a week. I don't know. I might clean the house.
I haven't showered in a while.
Yeah, I might make dinner. I might not. Like I'm setting like, I think it's because I think that's the benefit almost. Like I like that I've been around birth so much because we have like, I feel like Hollywood's projected this picture and just the expectation of women alone has projected so much on us that like be all, you know, and especially for working moms too, that you're working and taking care of your family and yourself and all of that. And so I've seen it happen so much. And I've seen friends who had those expectations and then they're like, Liz, I don't know the last time like I did anything for myself. I haven't slept in 4 years and I have 2 kids. And, you know, so then I'm like, oh, wait, that might actually be how it is. Like, I have no idea. So I feel like for me, I'm like, if I can like, you know, have a baby and keep it alive and keep myself alive, then I'm
you're
like
doing good.
Yeah, I'm awesome.
Yeah. No, I think you just have to, as like a new mom, focus on the positive things like that you're doing, like keeping the child alive.
Yes.
And I, you know, when I get overwhelmed or, you know, if I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like very bonded with my child today. Like this morning, like Bella woke up and I looked over at her and I was like, good morning, Bella. And she just looked at me and smiled. And I was like, I can take that little moment with me the entire day and say like, okay, you're doing good. She loves you. And it wasn't gas or poop that she was smiling about. Like it was me, you know?
Right.
And so that's like, I think if you take those little bitty moments with you, during, you know, each day, then it kind of helps maybe like even your stress level or anxiety calm down because those are the moments you do bond with your kid and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing good. Like, look at her, look at me. Oh, wow, she loves me, you know?
Yeah. Carly, I think that that's so wise. I feel like it's so important to celebrate little victories and to celebrate yourself. And even if it's just a little win for the day, even if you're like, okay, I have 12 things on my to-do list and actually instead I took a nap and that's a victory because I got some rest, you know?
Yes.
So celebrating the little wins, I think is awesome. Carly, you're just like so naturally good at this. Like she's just over there kicking ass.
I'm actually really not. I like analyze myself. Like I'm in my own head analyzing my actions and thoughts all the time. And so I'm like, okay, well that's not doing you any service. So let's try this maybe. But
you also have like Evan, who's a really good support system.
Evan is the only time Evan didn't help me out was one time last night. This is the first time ever. I was like, she woke up like 30 minutes after she went to bed. And I'm like, I fed her. And I was like, hey, Evan, can you burp her? Because he's like burping pro. And he looks at me and he was so tired that he just puts her on his chest and falls asleep. And I was like, I poke him. I'm like, no, burp her. And he just hands her back and he says, I'm sorry. I was like, what is happening right now? He is like the most helpful person all the time. I mean, he is a hero. But it was so funny last night. I was like, you were not helpful last night. And he was like, the one time I wasn't helpful. And I'm like, yes. But yeah, I have a hero as a husband. He really is the absolute best. He's Mr. Mom. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome. I mean, because of your stepsons and stuff, like he's been through it. So he knows, you know, that he's able to help you. So I also feel like then for first time dads, I'm sure that they carry some guilt and they're not knowing how to help.
Right.
Yeah.
Or be there for you. Or they're like, I don't know, she's crying then she usually breastfeeds and then she wants you and I don't know what I can do. You know what I mean? So Evan's gone through that a couple of times, so he knows how to help you.
Okay, so I kind of want to get back into the conversation in the beginning about the fourth trimester because I feel like we talked a lot about what it's like for mothers, but I want to talk about more what it's like for babies, and I wanted to talk about baby wearing. And because I was obsessed with baby wearing, and I feel like it really made Emerson feel just so much more safe and secure. And I feel like it's really like reaped benefits for her. And so I don't know what you feel about baby.
It really helps develop. So it really helps develop your attachment. And there's lots of different techniques during the fourth trimester that can help babies feel more like they were in utero. wearing your baby is fantastic. And there's lots of different types of wraps and carriers that you can use, especially during the points when they're really fussy. I find that wearing your baby can be a really great way of being able to soothe them because they're close to you, they smell you, and they're hearing your voice and your heartbeat. That's something they definitely miss. And also just simple skin to skin contact can be so soothing. It's really beneficial in the beginning stages, like right after birth. But even if you're able to do something as simple as like taking a bath with your baby can be really connective, let that, love hormone oxytocin flow and be able to nurture the baby. And then another thing you can do too is you can do, I know that there's lots of different trains of thought about it, but co-sleeping can be really helpful in terms of making it through for the baby, especially if you have like a co-sleeper cot that like kind of like attaches to the bed, can be really helpful in terms of helping baby stay settled through the night. Then it's really great because then they're really close to you and they need to feed. And it provides an easy way of co-sleeping in a safe way that because they always encourage you to have the baby sleep on their back and not be around pillows or soft mattresses. And so having like a co-sleeper can be really helpful for them to adjust.
Those things are so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen ones where they just like, they have like slats that slide under the mattress and then it just like pulls up right next to the mattress, which is so cool.
And it makes an extension of your bed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing to really help baby adjust is just really kind of letting them lead with feeds and when they want to feed. There's lots of different growth spurts that they have. And sometimes you can feel like, oh my gosh, they're wanting to just cluster feed like a bunch of times, like once each hour, for this span of time and just kind of like rolling with it. Especially if you notice that your breast is actually draining milk, that is a great way to be able to respond to them to help them soothe and feel full. And then with baby too, even just getting out and about after the first few weeks, especially for us in the colder parts of the States, where it's a lot, it's hard to kind of get out for a walk, even just throwing your baby in a carrier or in a stroller and just going for a walk. Sometimes that can be really soothing for them too. I know a lot of babies have a hard time in the car, but there are those ones that actually are okay in it. So even going for a ride, those are things that all can help just really nurture the baby. But one thing that really was really helpful for me was I know that you probably heard about Harvey Karp's Happiest Baby on the Block. It was actually referenced in the Facebook group, and that was a big help for me. They talk about the 5 S's, like swaddling, shushing, swinging, sucking, and side stomach position. And
Elizabeth talked about that last week.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful with trying to help nurture little ones as they're kind of making their way through.
What about I guess just understanding how babies don't know what day or night is yet. How long is that adjustment period? Is it that whole 4th trimester where they're still trying to figure out that they're now in this outside world? Or do you know anything?
I mean, I think metabolically, I read that babies aren't even really equipped to be able to sleep through the night without waking up to feed until they're at least 12 pounds. And usually that's closer to 4 months old. And we also think of sleeping through the night in lots of different ways. Some people have different opinions of what that means. It could even just mean as simple as a 4 to 6 hour stretch. That's actually more realistic than say 12 hours, which some babies can at a much later stage. So it is. I think it's reasonable to expect a baby to have that night and day trouble definitely for the first 2 months. But for some of them, even for that last 4 weeks.
That's not good news you just gave me.
So a lot of times what the suggestion is to combat that is to really try to feed them as much during the day so that they slowly start to get used to having nourishment during the daytime, which is when we would prefer them to be awake. But it like you kind of have to go back and forth with, is that reasonable
I mean, yesterday, Bella slept. I think she was only awake like maybe 2 hours the entire day. I was like, why is she still sleeping? Like, it was ridiculous. So then we knew we were in for a hard night, obviously. But like, what do you do? Should you just keep trying to wake her up or let her sleep? I don't really know what to do.
It's okay. During the day, it's totally okay if you're getting kind of to that 3-hour mark for a nap. It's totally okay to wake them up and try to get them ready to feed, whether it's changing their diaper or changing their clothes. A lot of times, if babies aren't skin to skin, sometimes that warmth from their clothes or from the swaddle blankets can kind of ease them back into sleep again. So even if it's totally, they're just cute naked butts, that can be really helpful too. Usually, especially for newborns, if they tend to have like 1 or 2 periods during a 24-hour cycle where they sleep a good 3 or 4 hours. And then other than that, then it tends to be a little bit more broken up. So but they're so tiny. You can't train a baby at this stage, just like you can't spoil a baby. You really can't. Like the first 3 months, that's a big thing too for parents to know, is that there's just survival mode. It's what you go with. There's no picking up baby too much or nursing too much or, loving on your little too much. It definitely impacts their development in such a positive way when you respond to them, because that's what they're wired to do. So.
Totally. I feel like that's something that I was worried about because like I said, I baby wore and I just loved nursing and cuddling and being with her, and I was just so worried I was spoiling her too much. But like I said, now I feel like I can see the benefits because we have such a great bond and attachment, and I can just see her personality coming out and her feeling secure in herself. It's so crazy at 6 months how you start seeing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and Jade, even like when you were at my house like a month ago, like even though you've spent a lot of alone time with her, like she was still so social. Like my dad was holding her, my mom put her to sleep, like I was holding her, like she was going to people, she was laughing, she was having a great time. Like it wasn't like she didn't let anybody else hold her or anything because you did that. But I mean, there are babies like that, and it might not be because they were held too much,
Mm-hmm. No, I think she's just naturally social. Like she just loves people. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. So was there any other questions, I guess, from the Facebook group that you guys specifically wanted to ask?
I mean, I'm trying to see. I had it open.
I know.
Sorry,
I know
guys.
That's okay. Baby. I know that one of the things that a lot of people were interested in were what are ways to help with your mood naturally or without actually something to try first before actually going to a provider when you're kind of just not sure if it's something to be concerned with. And I know that exercise, like you were saying, is such a fabulous way of being able to get that natural like endorphin rush and just feel your body move. And yoga and meditation can actually, practicing mindfulness is really helpful. And actually, Carly, that's exactly what you were doing when you were realizing that your feelings were actually just thoughts, that you were bringing attention to that. There was actually a woman on the page that had mentioned that having little goals each day was really helpful for her in terms of managing her anxiety, so that she could have little things to check off. And I thought that was such a fabulous idea. And someone else had suggested magnesium supplements. There's something that's called Natural Calm, which you can get. And it's so helpful in terms of just kind of feeling, I don't want to say more chill. You just feel more relaxed, and it really does help you sleep better too. Acupuncture can be a great way to be able to, body work in itself actually can be a really great thing to do when you're kind of questioning, why am I feeling this way? Is this normal? Because that can really help kind of just reset our bodies and the way that we respond to things like stress and whatnot. So those are all certainly things. And some people are fans of essential oils. There can be certain things that, certain oils that you can use that can be really calming, like lavender, or chamomile, or there's lots of different people that use different blends. Something diffusing or on your wrist can be a nice little pick-me-up.
I was reading some comments about people doing like a drop of lavender and like a tablespoon of a carrier oil to put on their baby's feet to calm them down. Is that like something that is good or bad? Do you know anything about that?
Oh gosh. I would say from the standpoint, I would really consult with your provider just to double check with that. Only because I think from the standpoint of being a doula, like I know that I have diffused oils around babies, but I've never actually physically applied them to newborns. So, so there, it is kind of like up for debate as to how well it works. It's kind of up to your discretion.
And I know, Jade, you're allergic to lavender, so it's not an option.
Yeah, no, I've used chamomile and lemon, like verbena, more than anything. So, because I can't use lavender. It like makes my throat feel like it's gonna shut.
That's so scary.
Oh man.
So
that's not relaxing at all.
It's not. But I've used more like Call It Calm when I've needed to like calm her down, which I feel like has worked really well for her. So more than, I guess, which is just it's essentially a few essential, I don't know if it's oils, but it's just a few, it's like lemon balm and chamomile and
different herbs.
Yeah, different herbs. And that really actually helped her a lot.
All right, Anna. So we talked a bit ago about, I guess, what normal feelings would be after you have the baby, and how you're saying you could prepare yourself for the postpartum before you even give birth. So, I mean, is there really a normal, or are all the feelings that you have after normal?
So there's a great article that I'll give you a link to that was written by a social worker that did a great job of describing like, is it just normal baby blues, or could it be some form of postpartum distress? And a lot of it highlighted on that feelings of overwhelm and anxiety that decrease with reassurance. That's totally normal. A lot of times you can kind of have these like escapist fantasies where like you kind of imagine like your life beforehand, or, oh man, I wish I could just run, away for the weekend and be able to sleep. That's all normal. A lot of the intrusive thoughts that you can have with babies, fears that of things happening to them that come and go, but that's not realistic. As long as it doesn't cause lasting distress and it's able to wane, that's normal. Sleeplessness that occurs from caring for your baby at night is normal, as long as you're able to go back to sleep when your baby's sleeping, or when you're having the option to rest. Fatigue's normal. Feelings of frustration towards your partner's normal. Even just moments of sadness or disappointment, or like anger towards your parents when you're reminded of ways that you were parented, that's all normal. Isolation is a big one because we spend so much time caring for our littles. A decrease in eating is normal too, because just the logistics of being a new parent. A a hesitancy and worry that comes with allowing others to care for your baby is normal. But that you're willing to do this when you're in need of a break. All of those things are normal, but what can be a point where you might want more support, especially reaching out to either your OB or your midwife or a mental health provider, is when you feel anxious and overwhelmed most of the time. Like it's an anxiety that doesn't go away even when other people reassure you. If you're kind of overwhelmed with feelings of regret over being a parent that doesn't seem to go away, if you're having repetitive and intrusive thoughts of harming your baby, that really upsets you and then impacts your ability to take care of your baby. Absolutely, if you have thoughts of hurting yourself, or if you're starting to have thoughts that maybe your baby or your family would be better off without you, that's not normal. Sleeplessness that occurs to like anxious thoughts that won't go away, like a deep fatigue that's not alleviated with rest, or a desire to remain in bed all day, when you're not eating at all, or you need to keep eating despite feeling full, or like relentless feelings of anger or rage towards your partner, and others, like feeling sad, feeling persistent feelings like you're not a good parent, or you're not good at doing, motherly things, even with validation or reassurance from others. Feeling like your baby doesn't like you because he or she cries and isn't feeding well. Just like never ending feelings that you'll never get better. All of those things definitely are tip-offs that you might be really going through a hard postpartum distress period that could really benefit from having additional help. Whether that's talk therapy that you can go through. There's lots of different postpartum groups for new parents that focus on postpartum mood disorders that are led by a therapist, or oftentimes medication can also be just the answer, and there's absolutely no shame in it. Postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety has so much to do with our hormones, but then there's also a lot of social factors too. So that can contribute to it. So being able to have a provider that's able to really listen to you is huge. And if you are saying if you're sharing all of these experiences and you don't feel you're being listened to, find someone else. Just keep talking until someone hears you. That's the important thing. You don't need to feel that way. Your parenting experience doesn't have to be this hard.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those, because you now make me feel a lot more normal. Because like some of those things you're saying, I'm like, oh, those are normal. Thank God, because you never know. So even you just stating those, and even if the only one I feel like I do have is the one I told you where I feel like I avoid a lot of responsibilities because I feel overwhelmed. But thank you, because I feel a lot better.
Of course. Yeah. And like we said before, even just outsourcing, being able to make all the balance, or talking to, Tanner and expressing the things that you're having trouble with in balancing, like how can we even the playing field a little bit? Because your time's just so different now. There's so much of it that's taken up, by Emerson. So
yeah, and that's hard for me, is to actually reach out and talk to other people, because I feel like I should be able to tackle it all, So that's then admitting it means that, not because I don't feel like like I said, my thing's not as a failure as a mother. It's just a failure as maybe it is, because I'm supposed to be able to tackle everything on top of my baby, and so I have a hard time expressing that I need the help.
I feel so bad that you feel that way, because my reality is that it's impossible. It's impossible to do all of those things. And as one person, being able to tackle all of those things, I don't think it speaks anything to you as a mother or as a person. It's just that it's a lot of responsibilities.
So we're having a few technical issues right now. But we just wanted to ask Anna, first off, thank you so much for coming. And where can we find a website to connect with you?
So my doula partner and I, you can find us at, we host It Takes a Village Birth and Family Support, and you can reach us in the Chicagoland area at www.villagedoulas.com.
Amazing. And everybody, please feel free to reach out on our Facebook page. We love hearing from you. We're asking questions too. We're all in this together. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Wave Podcast Network. Check out all of our shows, including the Brain Candy Podcast, I Don't Get It, Babes and Babies, Coffee Convos, and Let's Talk About It.